Warm greetings. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. So we'll begin as we usually begin, which is to very intentionally and consciously awaken our natural goodness, our bodhicitta, the heart mind of enlightenment. So we'll just brightly turn that on with full of confidence and joy and enthusiasm. And then we'll really kind of orient this time together, that it'll be of ultimate benefit for all beings, both bringing them immediate happiness and always right now, and then also very soon the enlightenment and freedom from all suffering and its causes as well. So we'll just turn on bodhicitta right now. Thanks so much. So really homage to the lineage masters, homage to Buddha Shakyamuni, homage to Guru Rinpoche, homage to this stainless golden mountain range of pristine lineage masters. So today we're going to dive deeply into the middle way view, which is in one way, just kind of by an honest assessment, we're kind of showing up really late to the party. This has been taught by the Buddha Shakyamuni or 2,500 years ago. And it's continually been taught and practiced by this lineage of masters. And it's actually perfect timing right now. We've all arrived to receive these precious golden nugget teachings that have been preserved uninterruptedly, without any mistaken errors or kind of mixing in opinions and conceptualizations. So here we are. We get to be together for a short little window of time and discuss something as profound and vast as the middle way view, which is really the elixir of all the troubles we'll ever experience and all the different suffering we've ever gone through. So we'll just take a minute to pause and really honor that we're really kind of midstream here. Everything that we're doing here together is because of the kindness and the perseverance of these lineage masters, these elders and ancestors that have really persevered to fully reveal their true nature. So that's why we have this opportunity now. And it's always important to really reconnect with that lineage and the blessings of those masters and the living lineage wisdom that they work so hard to realize and also to preserve and continue to make available for us now. So this is a really, really big topic. And we're going to do kind of like a highlight reel, okay, of the Madhyamaka middle way view. So we'll just jump right in. There's two approaches to the Buddhadharma. They both have the same purpose, to reveal all obscurations and to totally remove these obscurations and fully reveal our natural goodness qualities. So that's what all the teachings, the 84,000 teachings of the Buddha are designed to do. Remove the temporary obscurations, the veils of ignorance that are covering up our natural goodness, and to fully disclose or reveal the innate goodness qualities we have. All the teachings are designed for this purpose. And there's two general approaches towards these teachings, and one is the approach of the scholar, and the other is the approach of the meditator. And both of these are legitimate paths, and people of all types and varieties have taken both of these paths and achieved full enlightenment and fruition by applying the techniques and the teachings according to their own dispositions, whether they want to do a more scholarly approach or a more practice-oriented, direct meditator approach. So either of these paths are fully available to us. And as Nyingma school, actually we're asked by Guru Rinpoche and these lineage masters to always do both together. We call this study and practice. We're honoring the scriptural lineage as well as the practice or realization lineage. These always go hand in hand in the Nyingma school of Tibetan Buddhism. And so it's not so much it's something we'll always have to check in on both sides of this. And what a scholastic approach generally does is starts more with what's outside, what's more obvious, tangible, exterior, objective. And then looking closely, it gets more and more inside till it kind of had the resounding question of How is my subjective engagement, this knower, this awareness, how is it influencing what is known, this appearance? So the scholastic approach is a little more gradual, but it's also very thorough. We start outside with what's very obvious and tangible. We look at it closely, and gradually we come to investigate the looker, who's actually performing that investigation. On the other hand, the meditator approach jumps directly into their own awareness. How is my cognizance, my mind, this awareness, this consciousness, what is it? How does it work? How does it influence experience? What is its nature? These are direct meditator kind of questions or inquiries that we have all these sets of teachings to jump into and look for ourselves. The Buddha encouraged that, both of these approaches, to very thoroughly check what's going on here. So whether we're looking at what's outside, that's generally called ontology, being, a study of being, of what is, or epistemology, knowing. How do we know what is? Either of these approaches are legitimate paths in Buddhism, and they actually go hand in hand. Ontology and epistemology, the study of being and knowing, of the knower and the known, are always together. In Buddhism in general, and in the Nyingma school in particular, study and practice always go hand in hand. So we can take either of these approaches. And the great compassionate kindness teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni, was so generous in how he made the teachings available to us, to our readiness, to our dispositions, to our faculties, to our preferences, to our habits, to our biases, to our prejudices, to our ways of being stuck and way of being open. He was so kind. And they say there's 3 general phases that the Buddha taught. One is called the phase of no analysis. The second is called the phase of slight analysis. The third is called the phase of thorough analysis. So at the first level of the Buddha's teachings, the no analysis level, the Buddha just agreed with what was commonly held to be true. For example, there is suffering. The Buddha said, this is commonly held belief. Okay, I won't analyze that any further. I'll agree, there's suffering. So what are we going to do about it? What is the cause? Is it possible to fully remove suffering, the cause of suffering? What's the path? What are the steps, the tools we have to perform and engage to actually discover the cessation of suffering? This is the level of no analysis. The Buddha just agreed with our worldly, kind of common, mundane ideas, what we consider common sense. There's a person. We're in a building. The Buddha didn't challenge any of this. He didn't, no analysis, no further investigation on this level of the teachings. Okay? The second level is called slight analysis. And this is refuting our grasping onto the existence of things like suffering, house, me, person, path, enlightenment. The Buddha did a slight analysis. And he said, there is no such thing as true existence. I don't truly exist, you don't truly exist. The path doesn't truly exist, the house doesn't truly exist. Enlightenment does not truly exist. So the Buddha used conceptions to look more closely, a little more analysis, to help remove our grasping onto this fixed tension. We really believe these things are happening. I'm suffering. I need relief from suffering. There's a bad thing happening. There's a good thing I want. The Buddha said, look closely, analyze, loosen. Loosen the view. Open the awareness. Let a little more curiosity in. Look a little more closely. If we look really closely, we won't really find a substantially existent, permanent thing anywhere. The idea of a singular, independent, permanent entity is complete fiction. Everything has parts. Everything arises in dependence on other things. And everything is impermanent. SIP, singular, independent, permanent. There's no such thing that exists in all of the universe. If we feel it exists, that's one thing. If we look more closely, with a little more analysis, we won't be able to find that. It is unfindable. And that leads us to the third phase of the Buddha's teaching, thorough analysis. So at this phase, the Buddha wasn't just saying use concepts to kind of understand, having a better conceptual map, a more refined, intelligent kind of way to argument or to kind of locate my experience, but to actually be in non-conceptual wisdom awareness. Not duality consciousness, not dualistic mind. Not subject and object. Not a framework that has a me in here and a something other than me out there, a subject and an object. Before that layer of filtering happens in my own immediate experience, before that happens, recognize how the mind is with prajna, wisdom, non-conceptual wisdom awareness. Unborn, unceasing, by nature like the sky, experienced by self-reflexive awarenesses, discerning pristine cognition. This the great master Shantrakshita added to the beginning of the Heart Sutra. It's pointing to the middle way view, the lived experience of what it's like to be in non-conceptual wisdom awareness. This is the lived experience of the middle way view. Unborn, unceasing, by nature like the sky, experienced by self-reflexive awarenesses, discerning pristine cognition. So this is the topic that we're discussing today, the middle way view. So if we take a kind of step back from this no analysis, slight analysis, thorough analysis, the ways that kind of Buddha generally kind of made his teachings a little more direct to the true nature, the way enlightened beings experience things, not the way deluded sentient beings like myself experience things, the way enlightened beings experience things. This first turning of the wheel of Dharma, the Four Noble Truths, cause and effect, interdependence, that is this no analysis level. The second turning is called Rangtong, empty of self, empty of fixed self, empty of fixed identity, Rangtong. These are the Heart Sutra teachings, the Prajnaparamita Sutras that the Buddha gave. This is slight analysis and thorough analysis. The Buddha both said when we look closer, nothing fits those conceptual frameworks. Nothing truly exists in the way we feel it might. If we look even closer, we'll pop into absolute awareness, what we call prajna, non-conceptual wisdom awareness. This is thorough analysis. So in the Madhyamaka, or middle way teachings, this is saying the first part, slight analysis is going beyond slight analysis is lacking or empty of intrinsic existence or inherent existence. No fixed identity. There is no such thing as a fixed property, identity, pattern, person, place, thing. That is mistaken belief. It's just a false belief. Those things don't exist. Then the Buddha so kindly said, we might grasp onto non-existence. They don't exist. Nothing exists. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no da-da-da-da. So nothing. The Buddha said, no. This is in the thorough analysis. Look at, in your own awareness, how it functions when it's not conceptualizing at all. And this, the middle way teachings say, going beyond conceptual designation. Non-conceptual. Before conceptual layering happens. Be in wisdom. It's called natural mind, ordinary mind. The Buddha taught so many ways about this. Then the third turning teachings are, what is it actually like when we experience non-conceptual wisdom awareness? What's that like? Not what is it not, but what is it like? Then this is the third turning teachings, Shentong, empty of other, empty of what's other than the natural qualities of mind. Rangtong is empty of self. There's no fixed identity. That's second turning. Third turning is empty of other. All the adventitious temporary obscurations, when they're removed, what's left? The Buddha taught, the Tathagata Garbha, the Buddha nature's left. This is the middle way view. This is how our mind functions with all of its beautiful qualities, love, compassion, and wisdom. All the extraordinary capacities and qualities of enlightened wisdom awareness is Buddha activities. They're all kind of coming from this third turning of the wheel of Dharma. Shentong, teachings on the Buddha nature. Then fourth turning, some people say, is Vajrayana techniques. There's a big, long-term, centuries-old, big discussion about what's the definitive teaching of a Buddha. How do Buddhas experience things? Not how do they kind of, like, in a way, like, cater to the individual limitations of sentient beings? Not provisional, not a temporary way that's like a stepping stone for beings to use. But how do Buddhas experience things? Definitive truth. The great master Jamgang Mipham Rinpoche said the definitive teaching of the Buddha is the union of the second and third turnings of Rangtong and Shentong, empty in self and empty of other. Empty of any fixation at all, that's called non-dual wisdom. And what is that like? When it's empty of all the other things that are unnatural and it's just entirely natural, this is Buddha nature. So this is the groundless ground. This is the middle way view. There's no big debate over whether second turning is more definitive and third turning is more definitive. Their union is what's definitive, according to the great master Jamgang Mipham Rinpoche. As our kind, compassionate, extraordinary teachers Venerable Khenpo Rinpoche has taught in their Shedra series. All these books, there's so many books here. They've laid all these things out extensively, so kindly. All according to the great master Longchenpa and Mipham Rinpoche and these great lineage masters. These are really just like waiting to be opened up and pursued, and like it's such a delight. This is a treasure trove of teachings for us to, we can if we want to take a 8-year program to become a Khenpo or a Kenmo or a Geshe or a Geshima, 21 years. We can also, if we kind of want something more suitable to kind of the wild contemporary, I never have any time, 21st century, we can look at these books and they have this, it's like a very extensive highlights from these great masters that distilled the essence of both the scholastic path and the practitioner path into key points we have to have in order for our practice to stay on track, to follow in the footsteps of the Buddha. I'm just giving a quick highlight reel here. This is a very extensive thing, right? I've said things that are totally revolutionary, that don't make any sense in an ordinary view. There's no person, there's no path, wisdom awareness. I mean, see that on the evening news, Are they talking about anything like that? There's no suffering, no end of suffering, no birth, no old age, no sickness, no death. All we get is birth, old age, sickness, and death on the news, right? That's the level of no analysis, superficial, typical, distorted, ordinary sentient being ideas. And we actually believe them. And so the Buddha taught us so kindly how to look more closely and come out of such a distorted perception, which when we believe it feels so real. And we have this entire path at our disposal to really go through systematically and look at ourselves, look at our experience, and free ourselves from this trouble that our own mind keeps causing itself. It's the only way out. This is the only way out. I'm not saying Buddhism is the only way out. I'm saying this level of inquiry, following through and actually refining our conceptualization, having a more clear discernment, more valid cognition, is the only way to freedom. Everything else is a Band-Aid. We can save this planet 1,000,000 times over, but once the sun no longer produces heat, it's gone. We're gone. We can have a good stretch of some, 10 billion years or so. It's a big stretch. Evolutionarily, it's a big stretch. In terms of all the kalpas the Buddha taught, this is like a tiny little dewdrop in an ocean of time. We've been going in this ocean of suffering forever, literally beginningless time. This is the only way to freedom. Doing this inquiry ourselves. It's the only way. That is definitely a lion's roar of Buddha Shakyamuni. So while this maybe seem philosophical, that's actually quite experiential, and it really does alleviate suffering, our own suffering, and how we give, like, harm beings a little less in the process. We become more compassionate and more kind. So I'm just really quickly jumping through these highlight points. I'm in no way saying this is all the condensed, exhaustive explanation or something of an 8-year program, 21-year program. I'm just saying highlight points that we have to really get familiar with to practice and absorb these teachings thoroughly. Because these are lived experiences that we actually believe in right now. This is not just about historical figures and some lineage masters way back when. We really believe suffering is truly existing. I do. I really believe I'm here. I really believe my story. I really believe certain concepts like time and space. I really believe that. The Buddha said that's all false. Relative truth is artificial, fabricated, deceptive, delusory, like a husk that falls off of what's truly the core. This is all false. So then he gave us a path to gradually, if we want to look, gradually open up to consider the truth of this teaching. So we can actually be free of our own self-deception, free of not seeing our own unborn, sky-like nature of mind, the middle way view. All these teachings are about how to recognize and abide in the middle way view. So I'll lay some more foundation. The Buddha taught 4 philosophical schools. And like all of these teachings we're going over in the 9 yanas according to the Nyingma school, they all lead to another step. It's called yarden, geared forward. Each step, we're on it, leans us into the next step. That step, we're on that, leans us into the next step. They're geared to the next. That's how the sequence of the 9 yanas work. They're not against each other. It naturally extends into the next step. Each sub-yana or sub-vehicle, sub-level, it'll gradually open up into the next level if we keep that inquiry going. The Buddha said that's just how reality functions. And each step is a little closer, a little more detailed, a little more complete, a little more expressive of the true nature of the middle way view, of how enlightened beings perceive things. Each yana does that. It's a little more directly from our own pristine, valid cognition. And it's a little less relying on our distorted, habitual, dualistic consciousness. Each yana is higher that way, more inclusive. It's greater. It includes more of the true nature. The techniques are more directly jump us or pop us into our true nature. That's how the yana sequence works. This first school is called Vaibhashika. Great exposition school. This is like a so-called foundational Buddhism or Hinayana approach. And there's many beliefs they hold, but one belief they hold that I want to highlight here is there are 2 things in life: mind and body. Call it material, non-material. And each of these are made up of 2 things. Body is made up of irreducible particles of time and irreducible particles of physical units of space. That's matter. Teeny tiny, cannot be split any further units of time and space. And then mind is made up of 2 things: indivisible units of mind and the felt sense of self, me. One is like, what actually is the mind? These indivisible units of mind. And what experiences that? Me. My sense of me. Felt sense of self. The Vaibhashika school, great exposition school, believes this. This is really close to like a contemporary modern science. There's still a contemporary modern science. We're looking for the smallest unit, the smallest particle that makes up all of other aggregate reality. Now it's contemporary to think of it as strings, 11-dimensional strings. The Buddha said, keep looking. The strings are going to dissolve too. They'll dissolve under analysis. You'll find smaller units. Keep looking, keep looking, keep looking. Eventually we'll get to irreducible units of time, space, mind, and a sense of self. And that's everything that exists, according to Vaibhashika school. This is way beyond what we see on the news or what we talk about in our daily conversations. And the Buddha said you can experience this. In the Pali tradition, it's called bhanga. The felt experience that you're just this vibrating aggregate of indivisible particles. You can experience it. So this is really much more subtle than our typical ordinary average way of experiencing things, because it actually can be experienced, not just theoretically asserted, or, we haven't seen strings, They're all, it's like math, more or less math. Mathematically, we need strings to make the math work. So largely this is just like looking outside. I haven't started looking at the looker that much yet. This is quantum physics is 100 years old now. It's not some new thing on the block. This is a century old. The Buddha taught more subtle than this 2,500 years ago. I'm just saying, not that science is bad, but science has a lot to learn from Buddhism. If scientists like logic and they like a kind of objective verification, that's great. They can come and hang out with Buddhists and learn about that. But Buddhists have more than that. That's when we get to the next school. Sautrantika school, the Sutra school. This is the Buddha taught. The Buddha taught all these schools. As our mind opens, then the Buddha taught the next step, geared forward to the next view. The Sautrantika school, they kind of, so there's so many points here we can go over, but like a fundamental distinction between Sautrantika school and Vaibhashika. Sautrantika school, they think, okay, so say there are these irreducible particles out there of time and space and mind and sense of self, that these little physical things out there, we never directly perceive them. How can mind perceive matter? Because they're fundamentally different things. Mind and matter are material and immaterial. How can they ever understand each other or come in contact? Because they're of different types. It makes no sense for them to contact, actually, in Buddhist logic. So what the Sautrantika school asserted is that we never actually directly experience matter. We only ever directly experience our image of matter. Like there are these irreducible particles that are so tiny you can never directly perceive them. They're imperceptible. But we only ever experience our cognition, our mental overlay, our conceptual construction of the matter. Never directly experience matter, ever. We just experience our projection. All we ever experience is our projection. That's the Sautrantika. There are these little irreducible bits of space and time. We never directly experience them. We just have a generalized overlay that are our own projections. So these are both so-called foundational Buddhism philosophical schools. They also believe that to achieve enlightenment is a very rare thing that happens. It's a very special kind of being, like Gautama Buddha, who could achieve that. The pinnacle realization for most beings is arhathood. They refuted the existence of alaya vijnana, the ground storehouse consciousness. They don't believe in the bhumis, the five paths. They refute three kayas. They don't believe in these higher teachings. The Buddha didn't teach those in the sutras, in these sutras that they're focusing on. So then they're just following the words of the Buddha. specifically the Sautrantika view. They really didn't want to mix in any other commentaries. They just wanted to try to go directly with the words of the Buddha. And they only relied on very specific teachings of the Buddha that were more kind of available at that time. So then what we get, the next school is called a Yogacara or Chittamatra, or mind only. So the next step here, this is worth taking this time because we can do a really general thing here and save some time if we know some certain key points, okay? I mean, in my view, that's my experience. So Yogacara, or mind only, Sautrantika says it's all we ever experience is our projections. It's called a representational theory of mind. We only ever experience the representation. We never experience the actual thing, just our version of the thing. That's all we ever experience. Yogacara, or mind only, says we assume there's a thing there that's being represented. That's not true. There's no thing there. It's all projection, through and through, mind only. There is only mental. So there's no kind of a big problem of how mind and matter meet. There's only mind. It's all projection. Mind only school. So how could it all be mind? How can mind interact with mind? How can there be multiple minds? Because we think so much we're rooted in these tangible material things, right? I am. But my thoughts influence each other all the time. So do my emotions. My anger leads to my hatred, leads to my jealousy, leads to my hatred, leads to my self-doubt. It's a constant chain of mental things influence each other, all batting around in the little cage up there. Mind only school says it's only mind. There's nothing out there, just mind. That thing that we think is out there causing our projection, it's not there. That's a mistaken belief, misapprehension. So mind only school has 3 big points they call the 3 natures. 1, imaginary nature. 2, the dependent arising nature. 3, the truly established nature. Kuntag, Jinwan, Lundrup. Imaginary nature is totally false, 100%. There's nothing that exists. It's called, common examples are son of a barren woman, horn of a rabbit. The other one's ego. Ego is a completely false imaginary conception. There's no actual referent in reality that refers to. It's completely false. It's not a dream. It's a totally wrong view. There's no fixed entity. The Sutra schools believe this, and so does mind-only schools, so does Madhyamaka schools, so does all the Vajrayana schools, like the lineages. That's imaginary. So 1, we have to remove the imaginary things, the completely fictitious distortions we have that have no actual coherence with anything that's actually happening, like ego, sense of me, totally false. The second, dependent arising, okay, we eliminate some of that. What is happening? Well, there's these things interacting with each other, cause and effect. There are apparent projections, mental habits that are interplaying and causing results. What are they happening in? They say it's actually like the truly established nature. In mind-only school, this is called non-dual mind. In the path of mind-only school, what happens is non-dual mind is more fully revealed as our impure, dependent arising nature is purified. As our understanding of cause and effect gets more accurate, in the kind of totally false, artificial ways we understand cause and effect are gradually removed, then we get a purified experience, which actually just means more natural, less obscured, and then we fully reveal we kind of have the finally established true nature. 100% unmistaken. So they talk about this as the alaya being purified, the ground, the storehouse consciousness. It has all these temporary delusions. It's where all these experiences since infinite beginningless time have been stored as these habits. It receives every single sense datum, every percept, every concept, every perception, every conception, inputs it there, and then as the causes and conditions arise, the habits are activated, and then our projection is colored and textured in certain ways based on what particular habits are happening right now that we actually implanted in our alaya consciousness a long time ago or more recently. And gradually these distorted habits, through practice, through not falsely reifying, through not falsely holding on to our experience, these mistaken habits, the imaginary ones dissolve and are removed. Then the mistaken cause and effect, dependent arising habits are gradually removed until they're gone. And what's left is the truly established nature, non-dual mind. That's a mind-only school. And then we get to the middle way view, Madhyamaka. So the mind-only school, the middle way, Madhyamaka. There's two, this is the Buddha taught in the Prajnaparamita Sutras. The Madhyamaka, it's commonly distilled into the Heart Sutra teachings. This is second turning. Some people call it, some great masters call it, the second turning is the direct teaching of Prajnaparamita, of mind only. Third turning is the hidden meaning of Prajnaparamita. Middle way view. What is the middle? Oftentimes we think of middle as a left, right, middle. Left, right, center. This is not the middle way. I think it's more helpful to think of left, right, go up a level, so it's up-leveled into unmistaken awareness. It's called prajna. We're not playing the games of left and right, of binary games. It's not in dualistic consciousness anymore. What the middle way view is pointing out is unobstructed non-dual wisdom awareness, or prajna. It's free from the extremes of playing all these games, holding onto one side against the other side. That's what that's what middle way view is trying to point us into, trying to pop us into our natural intelligence that's beyond the four extremes. So their big critique of the mind-only school is mind-only school, those really kind of adherents to that view, they really believe in truly existent mind. There is mind. It's happening right now. This is all mind. That's all there is, mind. The Madhyamakans, or the middle way practitioners, there's two general types of Madhyamaka. The verbal aspect, or scripture, and then the realization aspect, or the meaning. So there's all the teachings on Madhyamaka, and then there's the actual direct experience of those teachings. So there's the theory, and then there's the experience. And mind only was taught, or you could say popularized by Nagarjuna, because the Buddha taught mind only. I keep saying mind only. The Buddha taught the middle way view. The Buddha taught Santantika, Vaibhashika, mind only, middle way, all the Vajrayana. But Nagarjuna popularized it, these middle way teachings. And that became two streams. The one stream was saying this simple way to put it. So if the main point of mind only is to just be in a type of awareness that doesn't play any binary games, totally fluid and flexible, takes no fixed position, non-dual wisdom awareness, the middle way. That's what's being pointed out in the middle way teachings, beyond conceptual designation. There's two ways to do this. One is we use relative stepping stones to gradually introduce and reintroduce this in our mind. The other is more sudden. It says every conceptual position is fundamentally mistaken. Don't play the games of concepts. Just see the true nature. Absolute truth. So this stepping stone approach of the middle way view, that is two subdivisions. One, it says, we're like people struggling here, so like we need to use some relative truth. You can't just refute all the relative positions and say they're all wrong. Which one's better? Is there one that's better for a practitioner? So there's the one that believes in the sutra school, these irreducible particles, Prasangika Madhyamaka. And then there's one that uses more mind-only school on the relative level. That's called Yogacara Madhyamaka, or mind-only middle way. That was expounded by the great master Shantarakshita. So that was taught by also Guru Rinpoche. That was what was brought, that's how these teachings were brought to Tibet in the 8th century. Yogacara Madhyamaka. These use relative stepping stones. They engage what's happening on the relative phenomenal world. What's the most helpful way according to these views? One says irreducible particles. There's all these tiny little bleeping things that are making up these big aggregate things. The other says, actually, it's just mind. That's the best relative description that's most helpful to pop yourself out of all conceptual designation and recognize wisdom awareness. These are the gradual stepping stone approaches of middle way. The more direct one, called Prasangika Madhyamaka, and what it does is it self-destructs every position. And it doesn't do that by banging it with some other, with our usual ways of conversing now, which is basically to like hit people with bats. This is a degenerate age. What Prasangika Madhyamaka uses is use the own logic of each position, and if you keep using their logic, eventually you get to a self-contradiction. Reductio ad absurdum. Every single relative position has that. Every single one. So Nagarjuna is famous for this tetralemma that undoes the four extremes. The extreme of this is or this is not. This both is and is not. This neither is nor is not. In logic terms, A, negation of A, both A and negation of A, neither A and negation of A. So these are the four logical positions that it covers exhaustively all relative positions possible. And Nagarjuna taught they all are limited, they're all diluted, they're all fundamentally self-contradictory. There's a thing, there's not the thing. There's both a thing and not the thing. There's neither the thing nor not the thing. They're all self-contradictory. So in Nagarjuna's Fundamental Wisdom of the Middle Way, amongst other teachings, he refuted these thoroughly. Why did he do that? He said, don't play games with conceptual relative designation. They're all fundamentally flawed. Just recognize absolute truth. Be in the realized meaning of Madhyamaka. Don't just play word games. Don't just gradually use kind of distorted ideas and less distorted until it's not distorted. Just go right to undistorted, non-deceptive, absolute truth. Don't play with fabrication, relative truth, fabricated artificial reality. Just ignite, turn on right now, wisdom awareness. That's called absolute bodhicitta. Just turn it on now. Don't play all these gradual games. There's too many beings suffering. They need our help too much. Just wake up. Right? Zen likes this approach. Just stick. Just come out. Wake up. But then they use all these rituals and stepping stones, and you walk this way and clean the bowl this way and all that. That's all Svatantrika Madhyamaka. There's all kinds of conceptual supports. So this is how this comes down to the middle way view. They say in one way, Madhyamaka is, if we're just looking at refuting inherent existence, there's no fixed identity, that's conceptual, because we're still using concepts to realize that. But then the direct meaning of Madhyamaka is being in non-conceptual wisdom awareness, or prajna, not falling for any of these games. Basically, a way to say this is, don't take any relative position as if it's absolutely true. because all relative positions are absolutely false. They are all distorted. The Buddha taught this so clearly. Conceptual mind is fundamentally distorted. In the prayer of Kundan Zampo, that's the big demon in Buddhism, conceptualization. We can use concepts to get into unconceptual or non-conceptual meditation. That's the stepping stone middle way approach. Or we can just directly try to recognize non-dual wisdom awareness. That's the Prasangika Madhyamaka approach. That's Rangtong, empty of self, empty of self-identity. The great master, Khenpo Sotram Jamsa Rinpoche, says Prasangika Madhyamaka is the ultimate highest view philosophically, because all relative positions are fundamentally erroneous. If you try to establish any relative position, it will be mistaken. So don't establish a relative position. Abide in ultimate truth. They don't affirm anything. They just establish that relative positions are fundamentally limited. So don't play with limited duality mind. Recognize unlimited duality, unlimited non-dual wisdom awareness. Then the same great master, Venerable Khenpo Sotram Jamsa Rinpoche, said, third turning Shentong approach is the best technique if you're actually going to apply it in practice. You say, what is it like when you're abiding in emptiness? All these amazing qualities come up. The 10 powers and all the fearlessnesses and omnisciences and all these clairs, the clairvoyances and clairaudience and clairvisual and all these things start happening. Because now the alaya is being purified and what was previously blocked is unblocked. And that arises as cities. And this is just said to be the natural state of how mind is when it's not all gunked up with habitual patterns. That's why it's the definitive teaching is both Rangtong and Shentong. Conceptually, Prasangika is the best one to get us out of conceptual grasping, our hang-ups, our holding on to this conceptual playground things that we like, our boxes, you know. Prasangika really shows that all these boxes are limited. Shentong says, what's it like if we're out of the box? No box. What's it like? What's the experience like? That's why for meditators, Shentong is said to be definitive. And then both, we need both, study and practice. So when it comes to it, the absolute truth is not that there's no box. It's not that there's no self. It's not that there's no position. It's that all positions on the ultimate level, absolutely speaking, all positions are fundamentally flexible. Their nature is emptiness. So, middle way view uses what's called transcendental logic to reveal the ultimate open, flexible, empty nature of every single relative experience. It doesn't turn the dream off. It wakes us up. It makes us lucid so we can navigate the dream to make it a better dream for all beings. All dreamlike beings make it a good dream for all of us. The dream will never end. We'll never not be in a box. But what we can be in is wisdom awareness and then its pure arising display, which is called pure relative truth. This is where the tantras begin. So these four philosophical schools, Vaibhashika, Srautantrika, Mind-only, Madhyamaka, these are all sutra. That's the basis of Tantra. That's why the middle way view of Madhyamaka view, the great Madhyamaka view is non-dual wisdom awareness or prajna, wisdom inseparable with compassion. That's how this is the foundation of Tantra. The middle way view leans into Tantra. It's geared forward to Tantra practice. That's what we're doing at the beginning of every session. That's what we're trying to reintroduce in our sadhana practice to ourselves, to abide in the middle way view. That's when dissolution happens. That's called the middle way view, great Madhyamaka. It could be called Dzogchen, Mahamudra, Prajnaparamita, Shije, Chud, Lamdre. Rinpoches have gone over this so many times. This is just the Buddha nature happening unobstructedly. So in the sutras, that's how they talk about it in the sutras, unobstructed Buddha nature. In the tantras, they talk about it as rigpa, or ordinary mind. How the mind is when it's not funneled through all these concepts. And then a key point here is it's not dumbing down the mind, becoming pre-conceptual. We're not trying to be like cows. Post-conceptual. We're trying to use concepts when necessary to skillfully communicate with others. But to see that's just one way of communicating. There's all these other ways of communicating that the Buddha pointed towards. Post-conceptual. Non-conceptual. Wisdom, awareness. That's what the middle way view is pointing towards. They do that by not establishing any fixed relative position. They let every relative position undo itself, and what's left isn't a smoldering wasteland of extreme relativism. What's left is non-dual wisdom awareness. Wisdom. That's how Buddhism is very different than deconstructionism. In the end, what's left when you see that everything's relative? Wisdom's left. That's why they say Buddhas don't have consciousness. They only have wisdom. That's why I talk about the 5 wisdoms. Buddhas don't have conceptual mind. They can see the baby nightmares that we play with concepts. Oh, I like this way and that way, and have all these narratives and designations and preferences and colors and fashions and fads and stuff. They see how all those baby activities we're doing, It's so sad. We've done it forever. We're going to keep doing it forever unless we stop doing it. It's sad. The Buddhists see that. Such compassion. And then they give us all these stepping stones to just finally just set down the burden, Just like relax the mind. Let it just be what it naturally is, with always in its own story, So we can see how typical, mundane, common sense, contemporary discussions on almost everything is a lot more superficial than this. Buddhism's not throwing that out. Buddhism meets all of us where we are. If we're really upset about the color of our car or, whatever, someone called us a name, the Buddha will approach that. It's called a no analysis. Oh, your car's red, not brown, sorry, Genuinely. The Buddha will genuinely experience that with compassion, not with condemnation or not kind of some I'm better than you approach. The middle way view meets beings exactly where they are in their dream and just helps it. It's just a dream, You can wake up a little more. And when we wake up, the dream doesn't stop. We become lucid in the dream. Then it's not a big problem anymore. So that's the big fundamental insight of the the middle way view. All of samsara is a false problem. There's no samsara. There's no nirvana. There's no path. There's no freedom. You can't be free if you were never trapped. The true nature was never trapped. It was always free. It's called great freedom, Chempo. Great perfection, great completion. We just have to recognize what we already are. Wisdom and compassion in union. That's the path of Buddha. That's the path the Buddha taught. And the most direct path is just to relax and see it and be it. And when we don't see that, then we need stepping stones, we need tools to re-recognize. And there's all these teachings and all these paths and philosophical schools and yanas to use. When we let that true nature happen, and our alaya or our mind, the subtle storehouse consciousness, is groundless. The groundless ground, right? Empty of intrinsic existence, doesn't have that quality. Talked about as if it's a base, Z, the base of all. Ground Madhyamaka, the union of two truths. Path Madhyamaka, the union of the two merits. Fruition Madhyamaka, the final total perfection of the two bodies of Rupakaya, form and formless bodies. That's the full expression of the the middle way view. The groundless ground. How's it recognized? By awareness. Undistorted, pristine, valid cognition. What does relative truth do once we start abiding in the groundless ground? We start seeing things more purely. That's when the tantras start. All the skillful means of the tantras start using kind of our pure natural qualities that start pouring out. And we use them, it's so skillful. We use conceptual pretending. I look like this, the guru's up there, it embodies all these things. It comes from, we go into the creation and it happens and the completion and it dissolves. It uses our conceptual designation if we're not experiencing that yet, we're not on the bhumis. But it uses it to undo itself. It uses our imagination to undo our conceptual fixation. We're practicing being free. And then we dissolve and we just let ourselves be free. So it's so skillful like that. And then the final yana, Dzogchen approach, Hatha Yoga yana, is not pretending anything, it's not playing any conceptual games anymore. It's letting the pure relative truth be what it is fully. It's letting the great equality, the absolute truth, be what it is fully. And don't do anything undistracted non-meditation. Recognize your own innate wisdom awareness, the groundless ground. And all these habits and things will come up and just let them come, let them go. Then there's all these teachings on that. And we need teachers to keep showing us because we keep believing in the most obvious things like, my name's Dragpa, There's a me here. Oh, so, birth, old age, sickness, and death. I really believe in all that. I have a lot of suffering around that. So we have to be kind to ourselves and go through this path gradually. But we can't fake ourselves out and act like we're being big middle way view people if we can't even talk about what does the middle way mean. Non-dual wisdom doesn't mean no concepts. It means isn't addicted to concepts. A great master abiding in non-dual wisdom awareness should be able to explain how reality functions so clearly with such elaboration. The Buddha taught so many teachings. It didn't shut off his ability to talk. Buddha was fully engaged. He just wasn't addicted to it. He wasn't stuck on one version of a dream and then just like hammering everyone with that version. Like we always do. I do. I'm right. You're wrong. Right? That's why, woo, da, da, da. Now I get to say the big trigger word, which I thought to throw in after all this kind of logical things and all this really traditional Buddhist Dharma. This is the exact same as integral approach. Everything I just went through proves the 9 jhana system's integral. Postmodern. It's a worldview. It's not a historical epic or just people who are dead and gone, This is a traditional Buddhist way to explain that worldview. The worldview that goes past of I'm right and you're wrong. That's called a middle way view. It doesn't actually hold on to a fixed relative position as if it's truly fixed. Oh, that's that way? Okay. I'll meet you where you're at. How can I help from there? Every other worldview doesn't do that. They all believe they're right and the other people are wrong. Look at it. I challenge everyone. Pre-integral worldviews. This isn't an elitist thing. It's not like Hatha Yoga is the only good one and all these other yanas are bad. That's not saying anything like that. Pre-integral worldviews, the fundamental belief that they all have, I'm right, everyone else is wrong. It's part of the operating system. The integral worldview is the only one that stops doing that. And then after that, it doesn't make that mistake again. Middle way views, the only Buddhist view that goes beyond fixating on relative views. And it just works with other people's positions, whatever's helpful to them. This is the same middle way view, integral worldview. It's the exact same. Theory is a different thing. Middle way has theory. It has experience. Every worldview has the theoretical map. Then it has the actual experience. But you can't be a bodhisattva really seriously and think you're right and everyone's wrong. That's impossible. It doesn't fit. Because bodhisattva approach fundamentally believes in the middle way view. Prajna is the only actual answer because Every other answer is like really believes it's right and all the other ones are wrong. So that's my challenge. If we're really serious about being bodhisattvas, we really have to upend our view that I'm right and you're wrong. It's not good enough to just do long retreat or say some prayers a little bit and then come out and like use our Buddhist jargon and hang out with our Buddhist friends and all that. The world needs more than that from us. We're talking about things beyond self, beyond other, beyond this ism and that ism and this tradition and that tradition. Buddhism needs a lot more flexible beings, and the middle way view is that flexible approach. That's essentially the Buddhist teaching. If we're not doing middle way view and we think we're doing all this Vajrayana and Tibetan Buddhism, we're really not. We're fooling ourselves. If we do a lot of Tibetan Buddhist practice, in the end it doesn't really help much, we're not doing it right. I know, I've not done it right for a long time. It's a challenge not just as I'm right and you're wrong. Are we really in a state of mind that actually is so caring about others' positions that we'll like see how they are right too? But it doesn't mean they're the right in the same way. Prasangika Madhyamaka on relative conventional truth still has a spectrum of mistaken conceptual truth, conventional truth, and unmistaken. They still make all these designations on the relative truth. It's not just all relative, anything goes. It's so refined, the view. They just think that's all fictitious. It's all fake. But there's some that are more accurate fake. Some are more helpful. There's some are more helpful Cinderella stories, as Soksar Khyentse Rinpoche says. But they're all provisional. So that's my long-winded thing, and I meant this to be a little longer. I mean, I can't possibly like talk about middle way view and not go through all the other philosophical schools and locate it within the nine jhana system. It's not true, you know. It's easy to say it's all space, you know. But so what? Easy breezy, you know. Words are so easy, but when the challenge happens, if we're not really actually coming from a place of wisdom, we just collapse into our most convenient habitual conceptualization. And we lock up and we freeze and we fight. That's called samsara. It's not enough anymore for 21st century Buddhists to just use nice funny words and then we just don't really do practice, or we do some practice but we just do it in a way that's not really curious, it's not really trying to undo itself, it's just trying to get in the time. And then 20 years goes by, and then we say, oh, I'm not really better or something, the Buddha is wrong, the Dharma is wrong. Then we blame. Venerable Khyentse Rinpoche has talked about this a lot. We're trying to use this time this is really preventative medicine. We need to know some of these key points. We need to know how mind-only school is based on Svatrantika, is based on Vaibhashika, and it leads to middle way, which leads to Vajrayana, which leads to Dzogchen, which goes beyond all isms. It's not about any system. It's just about naturalness. But we need to clearly see with mindfulness how we're not doing that. And we need to be kind to ourselves to see how we're not doing that. Not to say, I'm perfect. See how I keep messing up. If I'm not willing to look at my unconscious habits or to ask for help, then they're just going to keep being the background radiation, the operating system I just don't see, but usually everyone else sees. And it's just forever. And we're going to do the samsara thing forever. But without mind-only school, Vajrayana is a joke. We're going to transform all this into a mandala? That makes no sense if there's actual physical things out there. If we're going to go into all this, everything arises, there's a syllable which becomes a ornament, like a certain hand object, which becomes a deity, which becomes a retinue, which does all these activities and emanate and gather and dissolve and then receive blessing and then open awareness. We're going to talk about doing all that. How could a fixed position be true and have that practice make any sense? It doesn't make any sense I mean, it's the only way to be and to like really be in a state of mind that doesn't fixate. That's what we're practicing, how to not fixate. How to be present and engaged with appearance that's totally flexible. It's empty of being fixated, not non-reified experience. That's the only way to freedom. This is the only way we can really be a benefit to others, is really see how we keep trapping ourselves and actually put the time in to unlock our own blockages. No one can do it for us. We have everything we need to do this now. But it takes time to digest it, and it takes time to chew on it, and it takes time to engage it, and it takes vulnerability and honesty to say when I don't know what's going on and I need help, and to try to be vulnerable and receive help, and to like recognize some people are way farther along the path, and to use their guidance, and to try our best, and then we mess up, and then we try again. And at the end of that, we're going to be free. And then we can really help beings, like really help beings. Exactly how it makes sense to them, not how we think they need to be helped. But really, like on their own side, like what makes them a little more open? We need the flexibility to see like the real nuggets of truth in all of these positions. And at the same time, see how they're all limited, they're all partial. Everything's partially true on the relative level. It's partially false. So this wisdom awareness of prajna, the only way to be that flexible, that's the only way we can be flexible enough. Then when we're that flexible, then we really can engage partial positions with a lot of love and tenderness and care and respect. Otherwise, we're doing this Vajrayana thing for ourselves. It's a disaster. I'm doing Vajrayana so I can get free. Good luck. It doesn't work like that. Not all the philosophical schools already refuted the existence of the self. We can't use all these high-end Buddhist teachings and use them from a non-Buddhist worldview, believing in all these fixed entities. This doesn't work. It won't work. Like Dzogchen Khyentse Rinpoche also says, if you really want to use Buddhism to just be happy and free-flowing and stuff, just get a massage. It makes more sense. We're doing it to be free, not to be happy. Then it comes in the great blissfulness, and nature's already great bliss. So then it's like way past happiness. But we actually have to be in that and not just talk about that. So that's my kind of going through the whirlwind of all the 9 jhanas and the 4 philosophical schools to try to more firmly or clearly establish what a middle way view might look like, what it might be pointing towards. So this is all just moon pointing. And now we'll just kind of like use that moon pointing to just relax in our practice. So thanks so much. Thanks for your patience for a little bit of a kind of longer talk. But I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, friends. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here with you all. And yeah, we all have everything in our favor now. Beautiful human beings, beautiful opportunity, beautiful teachings, beautiful teacher, beautiful path, beautiful sangha. We really have everything. It's all laid out for us. And so we just, wherever we are, that's where we start. That's where we continue. And we just keep relaxing, keep resting, keep engaging with a really joyful heart, with really good intention. Give others the benefit of the doubt. Try to see their really goodness first. Then we can have a discussion about kind of finer points that are harder to figure out, a little more complicated. But like try to really start with really, they're a good being. I'm a good being, you're a good being. And like we really are in this together. We need to work together with that. And we need to be really kind of discerning about what we're bringing to the conversation, about what my mind's doing, what my habits are doing to me, how they're helping me, how they're hurting me, how they're helping and hurting others too. So that's just being a responsible practitioner of the Buddhadharma. And then this summary, I thought to give a quick summary to just tie it all together, which is be very succinct. First point, everything is impermanent. It all boils down to these tiny, irreducible particles of space, time, and mind. That's Vaibhashika. All we ever experience is our projection. That is Sautrantika. There is only projection. That's mind only. Some projections are really convenient, useful placeholders to recognizing what is beyond projection, what is not filtered through fundamentally deceptive projection. That's called categorized middle way view. All projections are fundamentally distorted and diluted. So just jump into what is fundamentally undistorted and not diluted. Pristine wisdom awareness, prajna. It's called uncategorized middle way view, prasangika. When we abide in pristine, valid cognition of the noble ones, then we use skillful means to gradually refine our perceptions and habits of body and speech. This is outer tantras. Outside in body, everything we see, form, sound, space, there is nothing impure. It's all deities doing dharma activities, enlightened activities in a mandala, Mahayoga. Everything inside is just the activities of deities in the mandalas, which fundamentally make up our Vajra body, Sa'along Tigle. It's Anu Yoga. Everything outside, inside, conceptual mind, non-conceptual wisdom has always only ever been pristine, valid cognition. It will never be stained. It has never been broken. It will always be 100% perfect and pure. This is Ati Yoga, Dzogchen. Then when it comes down to it, Venerable Kenshin Palden Sher Rinpoche said in his glorious book, The Nine Golden Chariots, the closer we look at relative truth, the more uncertain we become. Because relative truth is fabricated and fundamentally diluted. The closer we look at absolute ultimate truth, the more certain we become. Because prajna is unmistaken. Perfect, pristine, valid cognition. Thank you, friends. Thank you. We can do it. Yay, team. Bye.